Obscure characters in games can mean a lot of things, but today I'm talking about Starman, Cow, Egg Pawn, Servbot, Gone, Wii Fit Trainer, Daytona USA Hornet. I think you know the kind. When a multiplayer game involves collecting a cast of characters from an existing context, like a mainline series spin-off or a crossover, there is commonly a compulsion amidst developers to include a character or a couple characters who read to some players as surprise, out-of-pocket, unexpected, troll, literally who's, and or WTF picks. And there's very little middle ground as to how fans treat these inclusions. You either love them or you hate them. If you've been here before, I think you know how I feel about them.
I love them.
But while it's frankly obvious why those who don't care for these inclusions don't like them, it can be harder to pinpoint what it is exactly that endears those of us who love them. Obviously, there's no one uniform answer that accurately describes what motivates every single individual person to love or hate this category of character in multiplayer games. But there's almost always a most common explanation to which even the most nuanced deviations can likely be traced back. For the haters, the most common position will sound something like, these characters are a wasted space that should have gone to a more deserving participant. But for the lovers? My first instinct is to say the default position is, I just love the weirdos. But why? The difference between there are more deserving choices and I love this choice because it's weird can seem adversarial if you don't consider the minutia of what exactly is meant by deserving and weird, respectively. As someone who's made a couple videos imagining rosters for multiplayer games, I've frequently encountered comments that accuse me of only liking weird picks because I think it makes me quirky, or that I hate popular things because they're popular. And while I won't dismiss the idea that there are people who are performatively dismissive of popular things because they are popular, I am not one of them. And I really don't see how liking unpopular characters translates to disliking popular ones. In the context of games like Mario Kart, Smash, or what have you, being popular tends to equate in many people's minds as being deserving. And this is a sentiment I don't gel with. Not because I hate popular things on principle, but because I believe reducing roster composition to a popularity contest ignores the unique power that these rosters hold to mold people's perceptions of what characters do and don't bring something to the table. In turn, most of the time, turning characters once perceived as surprising because they're unpopular into popular mainstay characters in their own right. Take, for example, Captain Falcon of Super Smash Bros. Fame. He wasn't included because he was more unknown than the likes of Mario and Link, and it would make players go, what the f-? But for a number of factors stemmed somewhere between the facts that he mapped neatly onto assets from an early build of the game before it was decided to use Nintendo characters, and the fact he was a Nintendo All-Star in his own right, as the mascot of a fairly well-known game series, even if he could barely be seen outside manuals and magazines. Likewise, Jigglypuff, in the same game, was included for almost the exact same reasons. Both of these characters have gone on to be included in every subsequent entry in the Smash Bros. Franchise. Falcon has served as an ambassador for his franchise despite its dormancy during the time of Brawl's Ultimate, and he's so beloved in the context of Smash that he's inspired many people, myself included, to become fans of his home franchise despite its unpopularity. Jigglypuff, on the other hand, is viewed as a meme, a peculiar choice from over 100 Pocket Monsters, and a frankly ridiculous choice from over 1,000 Pocket Monsters. But those who wish to see her remain in future Smash installments will typically argue that she's earned her staple status and popularity in her own right by merit of being the original WTF character. I understand the sentiment behind the nomer, but even in the early days, I've always disliked the notion that these types of inclusions are meant to invoke WTF. It's not an intrinsically negative connotation, I know, but it is one that reduces the character to their perceived status. As if every character was selected with a fan reaction in mind. Diddy Kong will make him go, yay! Lucario will make him go, oh! Sonic will make him go, no way! And Rob will make him go, what the hell? Oh my god, no way! Nearly all of my favorite inclusions in multiplayer games from the time I was but an ankle cut have been ones people assert are WTF characters. But back then, I didn't know there was such a phenomenon as a WTF character. Nowadays, my favorite inclusions in these type of games still tend to be the obscure picks, but not as a rule of thumb. I'm sorry, Jeff Defense Squad, where you see a charming cartoon shark, I see derisive creative bankruptcy and cynical pandering. But to the point, why, as a grown sock attuned to the gaming industry, do I love Mario Kart World's NPC racers, and Smash's, quote, WTF characters, and Marvel and/or Capcom's deep cuts, besides Jeff? Why do I have no interest in Sonic racing and deeply miss the Sega All-Star series? Why is so much of my channel catered around highlighting the obscure corners of popular mediums and fictional worlds? Why? Just why? I'll tell you why. It's because there's something equal parts fascinating, exciting, and rewarding about discovering something that you could easily imagine being widely beloved that, for whatever reason, just isn't. And whether or not I'm a prior fan of any given obscure character who makes it into these types of games typically doesn't change the fact that I just love to see him. Kirby's Starman went from being the enemy that gives you high jump that I probably giggled at when I saw it waddling around in Return to Dreamland, to being the subject of an absolute bevy of adorable Japanese fan art I'm glad to see on my Twitter feed, all because Sakurai put him on the Air Riders roster. And that makes me glad.
Jim, next, please, Sakurai.
I'm glad Captain Falcon is a Smash Bros. Staple. Heck, glad Smash Bros. In general has elevated lesser-known series over the years, because it's made me aware of just how much is out there beyond the sort of thing you expect. As a kid, I would want little more than a game where you put different parts on little robots and make them fight. And Smash Bros. Told me, hey, that series exists, just not at the local GameStop, lol. I'm glad James Gunn and Marvel Studios turned the Guardians of the Galaxy into a household name. I knew who they were prior thanks to the Marvel 3000 comics in the 90s and their appearance in the Earth's Mightiest Heroes TV show, but now that everybody is familiar with that side of the Marvel Universe, and breaking away from derivative MCU synergy has become a trend in recent Marvel video games, it's opened up more opportunity for all sorts of cool, lesser-known cosmic characters to show up in things. I lit up in the theater when I saw a Lem in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I went gaga discovering the fact that this specific Lem was the Year 3000 Sorcerer Supreme in the comics, and now I'll never shut up about wanting to play as Krugar in a fighting game. My favorite Mario character as a kid was Paratroopa, having first encountered him in Mario Tennis 64, and continuing to find him in the likes of Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Power Tennis. It wasn't until I read the trophy description in Brawl and spied him in New Super Mario Bros. Wii that I realized Paratroopa was a whole set of enemies that were considered stomping fodder, and they dated all the way back to an 8-bit 80s game. And I imagine plenty of kids playing Mario Kart World today will grow fond of Coin Coffer or Swoop or Pianta just because of their fun designs and charming personalities too. And in a way, that's kind of the ideal way to assess characters' quote, deservingness for these kind of games to some extent. Fun designs, charming personalities. I'm not suggesting SpongeBob and Goku should be in Smash because they've got fun designs and charming personalities. These experiences should have cohesive criteria and boundaries regarding what characters are eligible. Ahem. But I am saying weird and obscure characters shouldn't be dismissed just because too few people know about them. That's got to be the objectively worst reason not to include a character ever. If you include a character few people know about, suddenly more people will know about them, because you've included them in a more popular context. I've been accused many times of disliking popular things because they're popular, but it seems to me everyone who's ever cited a character as being a bad fit for a popular multiplayer cast because they're not widely known enough are just hating unpopular things because they're unpopular. How did we get Starman and Air Riders over Taranza? How did we get Cow and Dolphin in Mario Kart before Dixie Kong and Egad? How did we get a darn plant in Smash over Crash Bandicoot? We didn't! Games like this can only include so many characters. Why not inject a little flavor, a little zest, a little surprise, something to keep the lineup more distinct and unto itself in composition, rather than the results of a popularity poll? When I made my excessively frugal Smash roster pitch, people were hella mad at me, because they are livid at the thought of losing their big-name guest stars and a huge chunk of longtime veterans in favor of ambassadors to Nintendo series they view as unworthy. But when I cynically cobbled together a 100-character roster that cut my top 3 favorites, and largely added popular or recency-biased characters, including some who used to be popular picks but aren't anymore, funny how recency bias is fleeting, the responses on the whole were glowingly positive. with the most common nitpicks being, but where's Ridley? And I would just add a few more of my favorites personally, lmao. Almost nobody pointed out that there wasn't a single newcomer from a lesser-known bygone Nintendo series in the lineup. And that, to me, is what makes Smash Bros. A uniquely great franchise. Nintendo don't always have the time, resources, or interest to make a new Punch-Out, or Kid Icarus, or F-Zero, so why not let those series get new music remixes, character renders, and other some such in the interim through a generational series catered to celebrating Nintendo's many worlds? And why not let the likes of Custom-Robo, Balloon Fight, Codename Steam, or even Stunt Race FX join them? What's so different about them now as the previously mentioned series were then? This video's kind of been all over the place, but the main point is right there in the title. You should love obscure characters in games. And if you don't, that's fine too, I guess. Like what you like, I'm not your dad. I just wanted to make my own thoughts known. And hey, even if you've disagreed with me here and there throughout this video, I bet you've still got a favorite obscure character inclusion from a multiplayer game, or a most wanted obscure character to join one someday. So why don't you let us know who they are in the comments? If no one else is, I know I'm certainly curious to hear about them. Until next time, folks, cue credits. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, leave it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, for more content like this. And if you'd like to support my endeavors fiscally, you can donate as little as $1 as a YouTube member or as a Patreon patron. If you do so, you get early access to content, behind-the-scenes looks at what I'm working on, and credits, like you see here before you at the end of my videos. Thanks again, and I will see you the next time I see you. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Hallelujah, ba-doo, 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 ba-dooby, dooby, dooby-doo, doobie, doo.